Ethan had always believed that success required discipline, strategy, and patience. It was how he built his tech empire from scratch. But as he sat in the dimly lit study of his penthouse, staring at his wife Lauren's reflection in the mirror across the room, he wondered if the same principles applied to marriage. Lauren had changed. Once, she had been his partner in everything. Through the late nights when he was just a struggling entrepreneur, through the failures, the near bankruptcies, the battles to get his company off the ground. She had supported him back when money was tight and dreams were big. But now, with their luxury penthouse, the endless vacations and the high-end cars, something had shifted. She was restless. She had picked up a new obsession, fitness. Ethan had no issue with that. He supported her, even encouraged it, signing her up for one of the most exclusive gyms in Manhattan. But the enthusiasm seemed different. There were the sudden late-night workouts, the whispered phone calls, the lingering glances at her phone, the barely concealed smiles when a message popped up. At first, he chalked it up to newfound motivation. Maybe she was just throwing herself into something new. People went through phases. But then came the excuses, the sudden need to run errands late at night, the lingering scent of expensive cologne on her clothes that wasn't his, the way she suddenly angled her phone screen away from him when she texted. Ethan wasn't a fool. He had built his empire by noticing patterns, by paying attention to details others missed. And the details here were adding up in a way he didn't like. Tonight, she had come home late again, hair damp from a supposed shower at the gym, a flush on her cheeks that wasn't from exercise. She was wearing a different outfit than the one she had left in earlier, something more elegant than workout clothes. He watched as she hurriedly placed her phone screen down on the nightstand before slipping into the bathroom. She thought he wouldn't notice. He did. Ethan leaned back in his chair, swirling the bourbon in his glass as his mind clicked into calculation mode. Confronting her now would be useless. She would lie, deflect, turn around on him. He had seen it before, with business rivals, with disloyal employees, with competitors who thought they were smarter than him. No, he needed more information. He needed proof. He started keeping mental notes of her behavior. The time she left, the duration of her gym visits, the frequency of those late-night text messages. He reviewed credit card statements, noticing an increase in transactions at boutique hotels, high-end restaurants, places he had never been with her. Every little inconsistency painted a bigger picture, one that Lauren thought she was clever enough to hide. But Ethan was always 5 steps ahead. The betrayal didn't hurt as much as he expected. It was cold, almost clinical. He had spent years protecting himself in business, preparing for betrayals and backstabbings. Why should marriage be any different? What intrigued him was the strategy behind it. How long had she been planning this? Was it impulsive, or had it been festering for years? Did she want out, or was she just enjoying the thrill of deception? Ethan wasn't just going to uncover the truth. He was going to make sure that, when he made his move, she would never see it coming. His mind began working through possibilities. Confrontation? Too easy, too predictable, and too emotional. No, she was playing a game. She had no idea who she was playing against. Because Ethan never lost. The next morning, Ethan took a different approach. He kissed Lauren goodbye as she headed off for her morning session at the gym, and then sat down at his computer. A few keystrokes, a couple of calls, and within hours, he had everything he needed. Lauren had left a trail, a messy, digital breadcrumb trail that led straight to Jason, her personal trainer. Text messages, calls, location pings. The evidence wasn't just circumstantial, it was damning. And then there was the footage. The gym had security cameras, and with a simple favor to a well-placed connection, Ethan had access to them. What he saw was enough to cement his decision. Lauren wasn't just having an affair. She was making plans. In one of the messages, she had typed words that made his blood turn cold. I can't do this forever. I need to find a way out. A way out, meaning out of their marriage. But on her terms. Ethan wasn't just dealing with infidelity. He was dealing with someone who wanted to dismantle his life piece by piece. He scrolled through more messages. Lauren and Jason weren't just sneaking around. She was talking about money, about assets, about ways to leave Ethan without losing the lavish lifestyle she had become accustomed to. His jaw tightened. She wasn't just cheating, she was plotting. Ethan closed his laptop. His heart should have been pounding. His emotions should have been spiraling, but instead, he felt something different. Something colder. Amusement. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought he was just the oblivious husband too busy with his work to notice. She thought she could outmaneuver him, manipulate the situation in her favor. She was wrong. Ethan was done being the passive observer. It was time to move pieces across the board. He would let Lauren continue believing she was in control. Let her think she was making all the right moves. Meanwhile, he would set the real game in motion. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I need some information. Full background, financials, every detail you can find on Jason Mercer, he said, his voice smooth, calculated. A pause, then a chuckle on the other end. Got yourself a problem? Not a problem, Ethan replied, a smirk forming on his lips. Just an opponent who doesn't realize she's already lost. And so, the game began. Ethan didn't lash out. He didn't scream, didn't accuse, didn't even hint that he knew. That would have been reactive, messy. Instead, he played the role of the devoted husband, smiling at Lauren over breakfast, asking about her workouts, even suggesting a weekend getaway. He watched the subtle hesitation in her response, the way her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. She was nervous. Good. He needed her to believe that she was still in control. While she was preoccupied with her secret rendezvous, Ethan set his own plan in motion. He started with Jason. With a few well-placed inquiries and some strategic financial moves, he acquired a controlling interest in a high-end gym where Jason worked. The owner, struggling with debt, had no issue selling off a majority share to an anonymous investor. Ethan now owned Jason's career without Jason even realizing it. And that was just the beginning. He carefully orchestrated a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Jason, a high-paying position at an exclusive wellness retreat in Dubai. The offer was too good to refuse. Luxury accommodations, a six-figure salary, and all expenses paid. Jason would be a fool to say no. The best part? Lauren had no idea that her lover's sudden departure had been arranged by her own husband. When Jason broke the news to her, Ethan watched her carefully. She smiled, feigning support, but Ethan saw the panic in her eyes. She wasn't ready to let Jason go. She hadn't prepared for this. Lauren was losing control of the game, and Ethan was just getting started. Jason was gone within 2 weeks. The gym threw him a farewell party with balloons, drinks, and 4 smiles. Lauren, of course, was there, standing beside him, pretending to be the supportive friend when Ethan knew she was barely holding herself together. Ethan played his part well. He shook Jason's hand, congratulated him on his new journey, even offered a toast. Lauren watched him carefully, searching for any hint of suspicion. He gave her none. The night Jason flew out, Lauren sat in their bedroom for hours, staring at her phone, waiting for a message that wouldn't come. Ethan lay beside her, pretending to sleep, listening to the quiet, erratic tapping of her fingers against the screen. She had expected to wake up to a loving text. Instead, she woke up to silence. Jason was gone, swept away across the world, and she was alone. Over the next few days, Ethan observed her unraveling. Her usual glow after gym sessions was gone. Her routine became erratic, her enthusiasm for fitness fading. She stopped dressing up before she left for workouts, her phone no longer lighting up with constant notifications. He could tell she was searching for explanations, reasons why Jason had left so suddenly. She was starting to panic. Ethan, of course, remained the doting husband. He made her breakfast, asked about her day, and even suggested a weekend getaway to rekindle their connection. Lauren smiled, but there was no warmth in it. He knew she was drowning in uncertainty, and it thrilled him to watch. One night, after she returned from another lifeless gym session, Ethan decided to tighten the noose. As she entered their bedroom, he casually mentioned a friend's wedding in Dubai. Crazy how life works, he mused. You remember Ben, right? He's getting married next month. In Dubai, of all places. Lauren froze. Her fingers gripped the edge of the dresser. She turned, forcing a casual smile. Dubai? Yeah, Ethan said, stretching. I hear it's beautiful. Maybe we should go. Get away for a bit. Lauren hesitated. Her mind was working furiously. He could see it in her eyes. Was Jason still there? Could she risk seeing him again? Or worse, had he moved on? The way her lips pressed together told him everything he needed to know. She was suffocating. Ethan stood, kissed her forehead, and left the room, letting her marinate in her thoughts. She had tried to play him, manipulate him, deceive him. Now, she was learning what it felt like to be truly powerless. And Ethan was far from done. Lauren had always been composed. A woman who knew how to keep her emotions under control, who could lie with a smile and charm her way through any situation. But now, she was unraveling. Ethan saw it in the way she fidgeted with her phone, how she checked it endlessly, waiting for a message that wouldn't come. He watched as she grew more irritable, snapping at small inconveniences, avoiding his gaze when he asked about her workouts. The cracks were widening, and he was only getting started. Ethan decided to take the next step. He wanted her not just anxious, but desperate. So he took things further. It started subtly. A misplaced credit card here, a declined transaction there. Nothing too obvious, just enough to make her question if she was losing track of things. Then, a bank alert she hadn't seen before. "Honey, did you withdraw money from the joint account?" she asked one evening. Try to keep her voice casual. Ethan looked up from his laptop, feigning confusion. "No, what?" She frowned, biting her lip. "I got a notification about a transfer. It's not a lot, but maybe a bank error?" Ethan suggested with a shrug. "You should call them tomorrow." Lauren nodded, but he saw the doubt in her eyes. She was starting to feel like she was losing control. The real masterpiece, though, was when he accidentally left his laptop open on a web page for a luxury divorce attorney. He made sure it was in clear view, ensuring she saw it when she walked past his office. When he heard her footsteps stop, he kept typing, acting as if he didn't notice her. "Ethan," she said slowly, her voice tight. "What is this?" He looked up, feigning surprise. "Oh, just some research. A friend of mine is going through a rough time, and I told him I'd look into options for him." Lauren swallowed hard. "A friend?" "Yeah." He smiled, shutting the laptop. "Why? Something on your mind?" She forced a laugh, shaking her head. "No, of course not. Just surprised, that's all." Ethan let the silence stretch between them before finally standing and kissing her temple. "Everything okay, babe?" She nodded stiffly. "Yeah, everything's fine." She was lying. That night, she barely slept. Ethan could hear her shifting beside him, her breathing uneven. He knew her mind was racing, trying to figure out what he knew, and that was exactly where he wanted her. The next morning, Ethan decided to push further. Over breakfast, he casually mentioned a corporate retreat he was planning for his company. "I might be flying out next month for a week or so," he said, buttering his toast. "Thinking about Dubai." Lauren froze. It was only a second, but he caught it. "Dubai?" she repeated, voice carefully neutral. "Yeah, we're looking into some overseas partnerships. Could be interesting." He sipped his coffee. "Maybe you should come. A little getaway for us." She forced a smile, stirring her tea. "Maybe. Sound nice." But he knew what she was thinking. Jason. She was wondering if she could find him, reconnect, salvage what had been ripped from her so suddenly. The very thought made him smirk. Later that day, Ethan took things further. He arranged for a package to be delivered to their home, an expensive men's cologne, the same brand Jason wore. He made sure Lauren saw it before he casually tossed it in the trash, shaking his head. "Wrong order," he muttered. She said nothing, but he saw the way her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a drink. She was spiraling. Ethan had once read that revenge wasn't about rage or destruction. True revenge was about control, about dismantling someone piece by piece until they realized they had nothing left. And Lauren was just starting to understand that now. Ethan could see it in Lauren's eyes now. Paranoia. She had always been confident, always in control. But now, she was questioning everything. Every glance, every pause in conversation, every minor inconvenience felt like a sign that her world was crumbling. And Ethan was making sure of it. He started manipulating her schedule. Small things at first. Their home's Wi-Fi mysteriously stopped working whenever she tried to make a call in the evenings. Her gym's booking system conveniently kept showing her usual slot as unavailable. Even her car, perfectly fine the night before, suddenly wouldn't start one morning, forcing her to take an Uber, where Ethan had arranged for a driver he knew to pick her up and accidentally mention how great life in Dubai was. The message was sinking in. She wasn't in control anymore. One night, after another tense dinner, Ethan pulled out his phone, pretending to be preoccupied. He scrolled through messages and let out a small chuckle. Lauren, already on edge, glanced at him. "Something funny?" she asked. He smirked, setting his phone down. "Oh, just an old friend from college. Turns out he's moving to Dubai." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Dubai?" she repeated too quickly. "Yeah, crazy timing, huh?" He took a sip of his wine, watching her carefully. "Seems like everyone is heading out there these days." Lauren barely touched the rest of her meal. She was too lost in thought, likely wondering, was Jason still there? Had Ethan found out something? Was this just a coincidence? Was a message? Later that night, Ethan walked past the bedroom as she sat hunched over her laptop. The blue glow of the screen reflected in her worried eyes. He stepped closer, watching as she quickly minimized a browser window. But not before he caught a glimpse of the search bar. Is Jason Mercer still in Dubai? Bingo! Ethan hid his smirk and walked past without saying a word. The next day, he decided to strike again. He arranged for a delivery to their home. An expensive women's necklace, something elegant and luxurious. The note attached simply read, "To New Beginnings." Lauren saw the package first. When Ethan walked in, she was holding it, her face pale. "Who sent this?" she asked, her voice unsteady. He acted confused. "What do you mean? This package? This note?" She thrust it toward him. "I didn't order this." Ethan frowned, picking up the note and reading it carefully. Weird. Maybe a mistake. Lauren wasn't convinced. He could see her mind racing. Was this from Jason? Was Ethan sending her a warning? Was someone watching her? She was drowning in uncertainty, and he was the one holding her under. That night, Lauren barely spoke. She stared at her wine glass, swirling the liquid absent-mindedly. Ethan leaned back, watching her with quiet amusement. He had learned long ago that the most powerful kind of revenge wasn't about anger or destruction. It was about making your opponent destroy themselves. And Lauren was doing just that. Lauren's unraveling was now undeniable. She had always been poised, always sure of herself, but that confidence was crumbling with every passing day. She was distracted, distant, and restless. Her phone, once her constant companion, now brought her no comfort. Instead of excited smiles at incoming messages, Ethan noticed how often she scrolled aimlessly, hoping for something, anything, from Jason. But there was nothing, because Ethan had made sure of that. He decided it was time for another push. Subtle, yet effective. Ethan reached out to an old friend, an attorney who specialized in high-net-worth divorces. He had no intention of filing yet, but he wanted Lauren to think otherwise. A few days later, an envelope was delivered to their penthouse, addressed to him from a top-tier law firm. He made sure to leave it on the kitchen counter, partially open, with a thick stack of documents visible inside. Lauren saw it immediately. "What's this?" she asked, her voice tight. Ethan glanced up from his coffee, acting as if he had almost forgotten about it. "Oh, just some paperwork. Business-related." She wasn't convinced. "Why is it from a divorce attorney?" He shrugged. "Legal consultation. Always good to stay informed, right?" Lauren's fingers curled around the edge of the envelope, her knuckles turning white. He could see the battle playing out in her mind. If she accused him, she risked exposing her own guilt. If she stayed silent, the fear would eat her alive. She did exactly what Ethan expected. She said nothing. Instead, she placed the envelope back on the counter and walked away, her hands trembling slightly. That night, she barely touched her dinner. Ethan made casual conversation, pretending not to notice the way she kept glancing at the counter. When she thought he wasn't looking, she pulled out her phone and discreetly typed a message. Ethan already knew what it would say. After she went to bed, he retrieved her phone. She wasn't careful anymore. Her paranoia made her sloppy. He scrolled through her messages until he found what he was looking for. "Lauren, hey, can we talk?" The message was unsent, sitting in the text box, addressed to Jason. Ethan smirked. She was breaking. The next day, he added another layer to her torment. He arranged for a private investigator, one he trusted, to follow her, not to gather evidence, but to be seen. The man, dressed sharply in an inconspicuous black suit, appeared at the cafe Lauren frequented, sitting a few tables away, reading a newspaper. Later, he showed up at her gym, casually leaning against a wall near the entrance. He never spoke to her, never made direct eye contact, but he was always there, just enough to make her wonder. By the third sighting, Lauren was visibly shaken. When she got home that night, Ethan found her standing in their bedroom, staring at herself in the mirror, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. When he stepped inside, she startled. "Everything okay?" he asked, feigning concern. Lauren hesitated. I think someone's following me." Ethan frowned, stepping closer. "Following you? What do you mean?" She swallowed, her gaze darting away. "I've just noticed someone. At the cafe. At the gym. I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining things." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've been stressed lately. Maybe it's just in your head." She let out a shaky breath, nodding, but he could see it, the doubt, the fear. She wasn't sure what was real anymore. And that was exactly what Ethan wanted. He kissed her forehead and pulled her into an embrace. "You know I'm always here for you, right?" Lauren nodded against his chest, but she didn't say a word. Her silence spoke volumes. The walls were closing in, and she knew it. Lauren was suffocating. Every aspect of her life felt like it was slipping through her fingers, and the worst part was she couldn't understand why. She had always been in control, always able to maneuver situations in her favor. But now, she was lost in a labyrinth where every turn led to another dead end. The feeling of being followed wouldn't leave her. She changed her routines, took different routes home, even skipped the gym for a few days, but it didn't help. The man in the black suit was always there, or maybe he was a different man, and she just couldn't tell anymore. Her paranoia was consuming her, making her jump at shadows. Ethan remained the doting husband, supportive, patient, understanding. But the more perfect he seemed, the more it unsettled her. She would catch him watching her sometimes, his expression unreadable, like he was waiting for something. And then there was the money. More withdrawals from a joint account. More transactions she didn't recognize. But when she checked the statements, she realized the money wasn't going to Ethan. It was going to her. Her heart pounded as she stared at the numbers. Thousands of dollars moved into an account under her name. She had never set up an account like that. Had she? Had she forgotten? Had someone else done it? She couldn't be sure anymore. One night, unable to take it any longer, she confronted Ethan. "Are you hiding something from me?" she asked, standing in the doorway of his office. He looked up from his laptop, raising an eyebrow. "Hiding something? Like what?" Lauren hesitated. She couldn't accuse him outright, not without revealing her own secrets. Things feel different lately." Ethan leaned back, studying her. "Different how?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind." He stood up and walked toward her, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. "Lauren, you've been under a lot of stress. Maybe you just need to relax." "I don't need to relax," she snapped, pulling away. "I need to know what's going on." Ethan sighed, his expression filled with concern. "Then tell me, Lauren, what's going on?" Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't say it, couldn't admit that she was the one who had been sneaking around, that she had been planning her escape with another man, that she was terrified Ethan knew more than he was letting on. Instead, she shook her head and walked away. That night, she barely slept. When she woke up, Ethan was already gone, but there was a note on his pillow. "Trust is everything, Lauren. I hope you still trust me." She read the words over and over, her hands shaking. He knew. He had to know. But how much? Lauren felt trapped. She had wanted an escape, an exit plan, but now it felt like every door had been locked from the outside. There was no way out. And worst of all, she had no idea what Ethan was planning next. Lauren had never felt this powerless before. Every calculated move she had made in her life had led her to a position of comfort, security, and control. But now, she was a prisoner in her own mind, trapped by a fear she couldn't quite name. And Ethan was still playing his part perfectly, too perfectly. She watched him that morning at breakfast, reading the paper as if nothing had changed. He glanced up and smiled at her, and it sent an eerie chill down her spine. There was something behind that smile, something she couldn't quite grasp. Was it amusement? Triumph? She had to get out. She had to figure out what was happening before it was too late. That afternoon, she went to the bank. She needed to see the mysterious account for herself, confirm whether it was real or if she truly was losing her mind. The banker, a well-dressed woman in her 50s, greeted her with a professional smile. "How can I help you today, Mrs. Carter?" Lauren forced a smile. "I need some details about an account under my name. I think there's been a mistake." The banker nodded and typed on her keyboard. A few seconds later, she looked up. "Your offshore account?" Lauren's breath hitched. "Offshore?" "Yes," she said. Try to keep her voice steady. "That one. Can you print me the most recent statements?" A few moments later, Lauren was staring at the impossible. The account had been opened months ago, and large sums of money had been deposited into it regularly. And the last transaction? A scheduled wire transfer to another private account set to go through at the end of the month. The recipient? Jason Mercer. Lauren's blood turned to ice. She hadn't done this. She hadn't moved money. She hadn't created this account. But it was in her name, linked to her information. On paper, it looked like she was the one funneling money out of her marriage, preparing for an escape. Just like Ethan wanted it to look. She barely made it home, her mind spinning. When she walked into the penthouse, Ethan was waiting for her, a glass of bourbon in hand, his expression unreadable. "Busy day?" he asked casually. Lauren felt her breath hitch. He knew. He knew she had gone to the bank. He knew what she had seen. She swallowed hard. "Just errands." Ethan nodded slowly, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Good. I was just thinking, trust is so important, isn't it? Without it, everything falls apart." She didn't respond. She couldn't. Ethan smiled, taking a slow sip. "I hope you haven't been keeping anything from me, Lauren, because I'd hate to think there were secrets between us." Lauren's hands were shaking. She clenched them in a fist to steady herself. "Of course not." Ethan simply nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "Good, because in the end, everything always comes to light." Lauren barely made it to the bedroom before collapsing onto the bed, her heart hammering in her chest. She had underestimated him. She had thought she could deceive him, but Ethan was always 3 steps ahead. She wasn't just trapped anymore. She was caught. Lauren sat in the dimly lit bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced, replaying every interaction with Ethan over the past few months. He had known all along. He had been setting her up, piece by piece, maneuvering her into a trap she had never seen coming. And now, there was nowhere to run. The offshore account, the transactions, the scheduled transfer to Jason. It all looked like she had been siphoning money out of their marriage, planning to disappear with her lover. If Ethan took this to court, she would lose everything. She barely slept that night. Every creak in the apartment made her flinch. Every shadow in the room seemed to mock her. By the time the sun began to rise, she had made a decision. She had to talk to Jason. She waited until Ethan left for work, then grabbed her phone and dialed the number she had memorized but never dared to use. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Lauren." Jason sounded groggy. It's early. "I need to talk to you," she whispered urgently. "It's important." There was a pause. "Are you okay?" "No," she admitted. "Ethan knows. I don't know how, but he knows everything. And now it looks like I was the one stealing from him. Jason, I need your help." Silence. Then a deep sigh. "Lauren." The line cut dead. Her stomach dropped. She checked the screen. Her phone had lost signal. No bars. No Wi-Fi. A cold dread settled over her. Ethan. He had done something. She rushed to the router, but the lights blinked normally. The problem wasn't with the internet. It was with her phone. He had blocked her somehow. Before she could process it, the front door opened. She spun around to see Ethan walking in, earlier than usual, his expression unreadable. "Who were you calling?" he asked, setting his briefcase down. Lauren's mouth went dry. "No one." Ethan's eyes darkened with amusement. "Lauren, we don't lie to each other, do we?" She swallowed hard, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "I was just checking something." Ethan stepped closer. "Was it Jason?" Her pulse thundered in her ears. He knew. Of course, he knew. Ethan sighed, shaking his head. You really should have been more careful. Lauren took a step back. What did you do? Ethan tilted his head slightly, as if considering his answer. Then he smiled. I made sure Jason wouldn't be a problem anymore. Lauren's breath hitched. What does that mean? Ethan didn't answer right away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, holding it out to her. Hands trembling, she took it and unfolded it. It was a plane ticket. One way. For Jason Mercer. Lauren's head spun. Where is he? Ethan smirked. Far away from here. Panic clawed at her chest. Jason was gone. Her only escape plan, her only ally, vanished just like that. She was well and truly alone. Ethan reached forward and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It's over, Lauren. Her vision blurred with unshed tears. She had walked into Ethan's game, believing she could play him. But now, she was backed into a corner, checkmated with no moves left. Ethan leaned in and whispered, and we haven't even gotten to the best part yet. Lauren sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the plane ticket so tightly that the paper crumpled in her fist. Jason was gone. Ethan had done this. He had orchestrated everything, manipulated every move. She had thought she was playing him, but she had been nothing more than a pawn in his game all along. She inhaled shakily and looked up at Ethan, whose smirk hadn't faded. He stood before her, radiating quiet dominance, his expression that of a man who had already won. But Lauren wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. What do you want? She forced out, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's smirk deepened. He turned, strolling toward the bar cart near the window, pouring himself a drink. Want, he echoed. Lauren, this was never about what I wanted. This was about what you deserved. Her stomach twisted. You could have just divorced me. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. And let you walk away with half? After everything. He took a slow sip of his bourbon. No, Lauren. That would have been too easy for you. She stood abruptly, her pulse racing. So what now? Are you going to blackmail me? Drag my name through the mud? Ethan turned to face her fully, his eyes dark and calculating. Oh, I don't need to do any of that. You've done it to yourself. Her hands clenched at her sides. I don't understand. He sighed as if disappointed. Lauren, the evidence is overwhelming. The offshore accounts. The financial trail leading straight to Jason. Every transaction in your name. Every withdrawal meticulously documented. He tilted his head. You look guilty because, on paper, you are guilty. A wave of nausea rolled through her. You set me up. Ethan raised a brow. Did I? Or did you just hand me everything I needed to bury you? Lauren felt her knees weaken. He had her cornered. If he went to the authorities, it wouldn't just be a messy divorce. It could be legal consequences, scandal, ruin. Her perfect life, her safety, her future, all hanging by a thread Ethan controlled. Her mind raced. There had to be a way out. A countermove. Something. I can fight this, she bluffed, lifting her chin. You may have power, but I still have rights. Ethan smiled like a man indulging a child's tantrum. You could try. The cold certainty in his voice sent ice through her veins. He had planned for everything. Every possible reaction, every potential escape route. He had already sealed them all shut. She was truly trapped. Ethan placed his drink down and walked toward her. She forced herself not to step back, not to show weakness. He leaned in, lowering his voice to a whisper. There's only one move left, Lauren. She swallowed. And what's that? His lips barely moved. Surrender. The air between them was suffocating. She had always seen Ethan as the brilliant entrepreneur, the man who built an empire from nothing. But now, standing here, staring into those cold, knowing eyes, she realized the truth. Ethan wasn't just a strategist. He was a predator, and she had never stood a chance. Lauren refused to go down without a fight. If Ethan wanted her to surrender, he would have to force her, and she wasn't about to let him see her beg. She had one last move left, one final chance to regain control. She straightened her shoulders, forcing her voice to stay steady. You think you've won, she said, but you've underestimated me. Ethan's expression didn't change. He merely tilted his head, watching her with amusement. Have I? Lauren stepped closer, locking eyes with him. You built this game around the idea that I would panic, that I would break down, that I would accept whatever punishment you think I deserve. She let out a quiet laugh. But you forgot something. Ethan arched a brow, waiting. I know you, Ethan. Her voice was soft, measured. You don't just want me to suffer. You want me to know that you outplayed me. You want me to acknowledge that I lost. Ethan took a slow sip of his bourbon. Go on. Lauren forced herself to smile, even as her hands trembled at her sides. What happens if I don't? What happens if I walk out that door and never look back? If I never give you the satisfaction of knowing you broke me? For the first time, Ethan's smirk wavered, just slightly, but it was enough. Lauren saw it, the tiny crack in his composure, and it gave her hope. She pressed forward. You want me to surrender? Fine, but on my terms. She lifted her chin. We settle. Quietly. No legal threats, no press, no games. You get to keep your reputation intact, and I walk away with just enough to disappear. Ethan's fingers drummed against his glass. And why would I agree to that? Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how far you went to destroy me, she said smoothly. You think I'm the only one with skeletons, Ethan? People admire you, respect you, but they don't know the real you. Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. You're bluffing. Lauren smiled. Try me. The silence between them stretched, thick with tension. Finally, Ethan sighed, setting his drink down. You never did know when to quit, did you? She held her ground. Neither did you. Ethan studied her for a long moment before exhaling. Fine, he said. Let's negotiate. Lauren didn't dare show relief. Not yet. But as she met Ethan's gaze, she knew one thing for certain. The game wasn't over. It had just changed. Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching Lauren with the same cold calculation that had unnerved her from start. She had made her move, called his bluff, and for the first time in months, she felt like she had regained a sliver of control. But she knew better than to think he'd simply roll over and accept it. Ethan exhaled slowly, his fingers tapping idly against the glass of bourbon. You want to negotiate? Fine, but understand this. You're not in a position to demand much. Lauren met his gaze, forcing herself to appear unfazed. That depends on what you want, Ethan. I think we both know you didn't go through all of this just to get rid of me. Ethan smirked. True. If I wanted you gone, you'd be gone already. But I prefer to finish what I start. A shiver ran down her spine, but she refused to let it show. Then let's talk. Ethan studied her for a long moment before gesturing toward the couch. Seat. She hesitated, but she knew walking away now would be the same as forfeiting. So she lowered herself onto the couch, keeping her back straight. Ethan remained standing, looming over her like a hunter deciding whether to finish off his prey. Here's how this works, he said smoothly. You leave with nothing but your freedom. No money, no assets, not a single dime of what you thought you were entitled to. In return, I don't press charges. I don't expose you. You get to disappear quietly. Lauren clenched her fists. That's not a negotiation. That's extortion. Ethan chuckled. You're in no position to argue semantics, Lauren. She took a breath, forcing herself to think. If she walked away with nothing, she would be vulnerable. Jason was gone. Her safety net had been cut, and Ethan knew it. She had one last play. You think leaving me with nothing is winning? She asked, tilting her head. That's where you're wrong. Ethan raised a brow. Enlighten me. Lauren crossed her legs, mirroring his calm. You created a scandal, Ethan. You played a perfect game, but there's always risk. People talk. Employees overheard things. Paper trails exist. If I leave quietly, that's one thing. But if I leave ruined, what's stopping me from telling my side of the story? She let that settle before adding. And we both know how much you value your reputation. A flicker of something dark passed through his expression. Annoyance? Respect? She couldn't tell. Finally, Ethan let out a short laugh. You really don't give up, do you? You taught me that, she said evenly. The silence between them stretched, thick with tension. Then, Ethan downed the rest of his bourbon and set the glass aside. Fina, you get a settlement. Modest. Enough to live, but nothing close to what you had. And you disappear. No lawsuits, no press, No parting words. Lauren exhaled, relief washing over her. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lifeline. "Deal," she said, offering her hand. Ethan hesitated for just a second before clasping it. His grip was firm, lingering just long enough to remind her who had won in the end. But as she looked into his eyes, she realized something else. Ethan might have won the battle, but the war wasn't over. Lauren didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of their conversation. She had secured a deal, but she didn't trust it. Not with Ethan. He never left things unfinished, and this didn't feel like an ending. Morning came too soon. Ethan was already dressed when she entered the kitchen, his expression unreadable. A folder sat on the counter between them. He gestured toward it. "Your settlement terms." She hesitated before flipping it open. It was all there, just as he had said. Enough to live, but barely. A small townhouse outside the city. A lump sum payment, and strict confidentiality clauses that ensured she could never speak about their marriage or the fallout. She looked up at him. "And if I sign this?" Ethan smirked. "You walk away clean. No losots, no scandals. Just a quiet exit." Lauren tapped her fingers against the folder. "And if I don't?" His gaze darkened slightly. "Then things get complicated." A chill ran through her. She knew what he meant. He still had all the power, all the evidence. If she fought him, he would destroy what little she had left. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Then I guess I should start packing." Ethan inclined his head. Smart choice. But as Lauren signed her name at the bottom of the agreement, a single thought burned in her mind. He thinks this is over. But the game wasn't done yet. Lauren sat in the passenger seat as Ethan drove toward her new townhouse. The silence between them was thick, charged. Ethan had barely spoken since they left the penthouse, but Lauren could feel his gaze flickering toward her every so often, studying her, testing her. She kept her expression neutral, her posture relaxed. She couldn't let him sense that her mind was still racing, calculating. When they arrived, Ethan pulled the car to a stop in front of the modest two-story home. It was a far cry from the luxury she was used to, but Lauren had no intention of staying long. She grabbed her suitcase and turned toward him. "Thank you for everything," she said with practiced sincerity. Ethan smirked. "No need to pretend, Lauren. We both know what this is." She held his gaze, unflinching. "I suppose vedo." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ethan leaned in slightly. "Stay out of my way, and I'll stay out of yours." Lauren offered him a small, knowing smile. "Of course." Without another word, she turned and walked up the steps, unlocking the door and stepping inside. She didn't look back until she heard the engine roar to life and the car disappeared down the street. Once she was alone, she allowed herself to exhale. The first stage was complete. Now, she had work to do. She set down her bag and pulled out the flash drive, inserting it into her laptop. The files opened instantly, spreadsheets, emails, account transactions, all linking Ethan to financial dealings that weren't just ruthless, but, in some cases, legally questionable. He had buried his tracks well, but Lauren had spent years watching him, learning how he operated. She wasn't going to take him down in the way he expected. No direct confrontation, no messy legal battle. No, she would dismantle him from the inside. She opened a new email, attached a few key files, and addressed it to an anonymous journalist contact she had met years ago. Subject: a story you might be interested in. Her fingers hovered over the send button. She knew the moment she pressed it, there would be no turning back. Ethan would realize soon enough what she had done. And when he did, he would come for her. Lauren took a deep breath. Then she clicked send. Lauren barely slept that night. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside. Her heart pounded, anticipation and anxiety fighting for dominance. She had done it. The email was sent. The game was still in motion. Morning light crept through the blinds. She forced herself up, dressed simply, and made coffee. She sat at the small kitchen table, phone in hand, scrolling through the news. Nothing yet. No leaks, no headlines. But she knew it was only a matter of time. A knock at the door startled her. Too soon. He wouldn't know yet, would he? She moved cautiously, peering through the peephole. A delivery man stood outside, holding a small package. Lauren opened the door, signing for the box. There was no return address. She carried it to the table, her pulse quickening as she tore the seal and lifted the lid. Inside was a single chess piece, a white queen, lying on its side. Her breath hitched. No note, no explanation. But she didn't need one. Ethan knew. Her phone buzzed. A message. Not from an unknown number, not from Ethan, but from her journalist contact. Got your files. This is huge. We need to talk. Lauren's fingers trembled as she typed back. When? Now. Face to face. Somewhere public. She swallowed hard. This was it. If she met them, there was no undoing it. But if she hesitated, if she did nothing, Ethan would make his move first. She grabbed her bag and slipped out of the townhouse, her mind racing. The game wasn't just continuing. It was escalating. Lauren moved quickly through the streets, her heart hammering. Every shadow, every unfamiliar face felt like a potential threat. Ethan wouldn't sit idly by while she unraveled his carefully constructed world. He was already watching. She knew that much. She reached the cafe, a small, tucked-away spot downtown. Inside, the journalist, Daniel Pierce, was waiting in a corner booth, his laptop open, his eyes scanning the room. She slid into the seat across from him, her hands cold despite the warm air. "You're either very brave or very reckless," Daniel said, his voice low. "Maybe both," Lauren replied. "Do you have everything?" Daniel nodded, pulling a flash drive from his pocket. "Your files check out. Ethan's been involved in some shady dealings. But here's the thing. None of it will stick unless we have more. He's too careful." Lauren clenched her jaw. "There's more. I just have to get to it." Daniel studied her. "You're playing a dangerous game." She gave a humorless laugh. "I don't have a choice." Daniel hesitated, then pushed a business card toward her. "This isn't just about exposing him. If you need protection, call this number." Lauren glanced at the card. A private security firm. The implication was clear. If Ethan decided to retaliate, she might need more than a journalist's help. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "Time's up, Lauren. Go home." Her stomach dropped. She looked up, scanning the cafe. No sign of Ethan, but that didn't mean he wasn't watching. Daniel saw her expression. "What is it?" Lauren swallowed hard. "He knows I'm here." She stood abruptly, grabbing the card and stuffing it into her pocket. "I need to go." Daniel frowned. "Lauren, I'll be in touch." She hurried out of the cafe, her pulse pounding. Ethan was tightening his grip, but she wasn't done yet. If he wanted to end this game, he would have to face her head-on. And this time, she was ready. Lauren walked quickly, resisting the urge to look over her shoulder. She knew better than to panic. Panic made people sloppy. But Ethan's message was clear. He was closing in. She turned a corner and slipped into a side alley, pressing her back against the cold brick wall. Taking out her phone, she scrolled through her contacts until she found the number Daniel had given her. Her fingers hovered over the dial button. Did she really need protection? Was she overreacting? A black SUV rolled slowly down the street. Tinted windows. Unmarked. The same kind of vehicle Ethan used when he wanted to be discreet. Lauren's breath hitched. Her thumb pressed down before she could second-guess herself. A voice answered on the second ring. "This is Grayson." She steadied herself. "I need your help. Now." There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" She gave him a location and ended the call. A few minutes later, another car pulled up. Not the SUV, but a sleek sedan with a lone driver inside. "Grayson." Lauren climbed in, shutting the door quickly. "Drive." Grayson, a man in his mid-40s with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, didn't ask questions. He pulled away smoothly, merging into traffic as if they were just another vehicle on the road. "Tell me what's going on," he said. Lauren exhaled. "Ethan Carter. He's watching me. He knows I met with a journalist. He's going to retaliate." Grayson didn't react, but she could tell he was assessing the situation. "How much danger are we talking? Physical, financial, or psychological?" "All of the above." He nodded. "Do you have a safe place to go?" "Not anymore." Grayson drove in silence for a moment, then pulled into an underground garage. He parked in a shadowed corner and turned to her. "You need a plan, and you need to move fast." Whatever Ethan has planned, he's already 2 steps ahead. But that doesn't mean you can't get ahead of him. Lauren swallowed hard. Then let's do it. She wasn't going to run. She was going to fight. Lauren sat across from Grayson in a dimly lit safe house apartment, her mind racing. She had spent years thinking she understood Ethan, but now she realized she had only ever seen the parts he allowed her to see. He had been controlling her long before she even knew she needed to fight back. She wouldn't let him win. Grayson pulled out a laptop. We need leverage. What do you have? Lauren exhaled and slid the flash drive across the table. Everything. Financial records, offshore accounts, transactions he never wanted anyone to see. Grayson nodded approvingly and got to work. As he scanned the files, his expression hardened. He's been laundering money through shell companies, moving funds in and out of accounts tied to government contracts. This isn't just corporate fraud, it's federal. Lauren's breath caught. She had suspected financial crimes, but this was bigger than she thought. Grayson's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and then at her. It's begun. The journalist ran the first story an hour ago. Ethan knows. Lauren felt the weight of those words settle in her chest. How bad is it? Grayson turned his laptop toward her. The news headlines flashed across the screen. Tech mogul Ethan Carter under investigation for financial misconduct. Anonymous sources leaked damning evidence of corruption. The walls were closing in on Ethan now. Lauren leaned back in her chair. He's not going to go down quietly. Grayson studied her carefully. No, he's not. But you're not alone in this anymore. Her phone vibrated. A message from Ethan. You don't know what you've done, but you will. A cold shiver ran down her spine, but she steadied herself. Ethan had underestimated her for too long. She typed back, checkmate. And for the first time in a long time, she felt free.